Good morning, everybody. This is Doris Colgate and Steve Colgate with our 70th Dockside Chats with Steve. And today we wanted to do a little reminiscing with you, and we have a big surprise for you as well. It's a little bit chilly. We're not out on the dock because it's quite noisy. We are looking at the dock from one of our lanais. So I have notes here, and I'm going to be asking Steve some questions. And I think most of you know by now that we are having a biography written about Steve and me and Offshore Sailing School by the great writer Herb McCormick of Cruising World fame. And it's going to be a fantastic book, pretty revealing actually, so we're not going to get into, sorry. Okay, so many stories that we've done in the 69 chats so far are in the book, but not all of them. And the book is going to be called For the Love of Sailing. So as this book evolves, I had to write a timeline for it, and the more I wrote, the more I looked at going back to 1964 when you started Offshore Sailing School. I said, holy mackerel, how in the world did we do everything that we did? But one thing we did really enjoy was sailing. And we enjoyed sailing to the max.
Passionate sailing.
Yeah, did we not?
Mm-hmm.
And you were heading to fantastic races all the time, and sometimes I got to go with you. So, and sometimes I didn't. I had to stay home and work. But, so this is going to be a little bit longer than the normal chat, so grab a cup of coffee, because at the end, we have a surprise contest for you, and we don't want you to go away. So, okay, Steve, I took your Learn to Sail course in an old brownstone in Manhattan at 5 East 40th Street, an old smoky place. That was quite something.
Yeah, we were on the fourth floor. It was I shared space with Summer Marine Electronics, it's a marine electronics firm that brought out all of our sales, sold retail and wholesale, all the best and newest in electronics. And so we had a whole bunch of people who come by. One was Rod Stevens, the brother of Olin Stevens. Back then, Olin was probably the foremost naval architect in the country, and Rod would come up and looking for the newest things in electronics. Then we had courses that we ran, and one was taught by Arthur Knapp about racing. He was one of the best racing sailors and writers in the country. He wrote Race Your Boat Right was the name of the book, one of the first racing books I ever saw. And then we had an unusual person that came by, Donald Crowhurst. He's an Englishman who, if you haven't read it, get the book, The Strange Last Voyage of Donald Crowhurst, where he, I won't talk about it, but
No, don't give the story
something
away.
very interesting happened.
Yeah, so in this crummy old office, we had a lot of machinery that somehow, I don't even know how we paid for it, but anyway, do you remember that old crank?
The Stetner
machine that,
Some sort of a mimeograph machine.
so we printed out everything on it, and it had some sort of purple ink that made me totally loopy.
Yeah.
And then we had that great big, what was that? A big
Folder inserter machine, yes.
Yeah.
And once we got them folded and printed, folded, inserted, hundreds of these things, we had to lick the stamps. Back then, you only
And the
lick
envelopes.
the stamps and the envelopes. That we use a sponge for the envelopes, but it was slow going.
Yeah,
a lot of work.
It was. And then one time you printed up some pamphlets, right?
That's right. I thought, well, we must get our school
Flyers.
out on flyers, get it out, and we hired a guy to hand them out down in the financial district way downtown, figuring that's going to be our more lucrative people that sign up for the courses. And a cop comes along and says, well, where's your permit, buddy? Permit? We never thought about permits.
Yeah. Yeah, but anyway, we got away.
And then at 5 East, downtown, I was at A.L. Don Company.
Before offshore.
Talk about being naive before offshore. Not before offshore. Yeah, it was before offshore.
Before
right,
offshore.
yes. and I worked with Lee Don there, and he was a wonderful boss. And he wanted to, I wanted to paint the front of the building. The building had been there since the 1800s. Needed a good coat of paint. So I came down on a Sunday and started painting the building. A cop comes along and says, "Hey buddy, stop that, that's illegal." I said, "Painting a building is illegal?" He said, "Yeah, Sunday blue laws.
Blue laws.
Back then, you can't work on Sunday."
Okay, so it's just you and me and a bunch of instructors, and all those instructors were guys. And as I was doing the timeline, I found this is Steve's very first brochure. This funny little brochure that doesn't have any name for the courses, 1965, and in it he makes a big point of saying that all of our instructors are highly qualified men. Okay, well, you know, I've lived with this
Those
most
are
of the
fighting
time.
words.
So, yeah, whatever. So, anyway, we needed help, and so we hired our very first person, and who was that?
Jackie Schwanweed, who was a very bright young gal, and we never wanted to stand in the way of people doing what they wanted to do with their lives. And she wanted to be a doctor, and she quit and became a doctor.
Yeah, she's a pediatrician.
Yeah.
And then our longest serving instructor was Lou Carretero, so tell us about Lou.
That's right. Lou was one of these, I don't know, he's still alive. He is quite a character, and he would have these stories, and there was one story about anchoring in Port Jefferson, and the harbor of Port Jefferson. And I never heard the whole story. Maybe he can tell it to you someday. But he had the class in stitches with his stories. Just a real character, and he became a speaker for Northview too.
Yes, but one day I called out to City Island. We had our office in Manhattan then, and someone answered, and they said, "Off the wall sailing school, Shitty Island." And I said, "Who's this?" And he said, "Oh." Anyway, that was Lou. Lou was one of those guys, and he did our Learn to Sail in a Day programs at boat shows too, and he kept everybody
Say
going.
700 people you had in one of those.
Well, yeah, but anyway, so what about guest experts? We
Oh,
had the racing program.
Yeah, we had the racing program. We had a lot of opportunities. That really helped me a lot. The guest experts we had were the best sailors in the whole country.
Olympians, most of them.
And, yeah, there was Buddy Melgus, Peter Barrett, Tom Blackhauler,
Stuart Walker, so many.
a whole bunch of them, and they were just so. They just came for. That was back when sailing was an amateur sport, and you couldn't become a professional basically. If you were a professional, it really limited your ability to sail with people. So they all did it just for the advancement of sailing and be able to pass on what they knew to these racing sailors that took the course.
But we have so many people to thank, so many people in the sailing industry and the sailing world that made it possible for offshore to get out there and really, you know, be what it is today.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working for Yachting Magazine when we met, and they let me write articles, and I just wanted to show you all. This is Yachting Magazine 1969, which has a big article in it by me and another by Steve about
I was on Dinah on a transatlantic race to Cork, Ireland.
No color in the magazines in these days, folks. They're just, black and white.
And so when you get into Cork, and there's Doris. Couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I hitched a ride.
1969.
I hitched a ride on an airplane. So I'd like to thank very much Sally Helm, who led the sailing company and Cruising World and Sailing World magazine to the great magazines that they are today, and Bernadette Burden, who was the executive editor and was the first recipient of the National Women's Sailing Association Leadership in Women's Sailing Award, and boy did she deserve that. And then there's Sally Christine Rogers, who ran the West Marine Foundation that gave NWSA, National Women's Sailing Association, the money to create lots of programs for women that we held at boat shows, and that was also special. And there are others, Linda Lundquist, Betsy Allison, but there's some people that you...
Bernie Goldhirsch, who started Sail Magazine and Ink Magazine, allowed me to write,
invited you.
asked me to write a Learn to Sail article in the early days of
For the
Sail
first 2
Magazine.
years.
First 2 years, one a month,
Yeah.
24 articles. And that, of course, that got me a lot of readership and helped a lot.
And
you know.
then when we developed the Colgate 26, Gary Johnson,
Gary Jobson, yeah,
he was on the Fails Committee.
and he was instrumental in helping get the U.S. Naval Academy to accept and take Colgate 26s, and they have 42 of them now. So Gary is just a wonderful person for Sailing Magazine and for sailing and for helping. Well, he helped us, and he didn't have to. It's really nice.
Yeah, and there were so many more, the people that you raced with. But the most important, well, there were 3 that were really super special, right? When you were on America's Cup Trials.
Yeah, Charlie Morgan went with me. And he
Asked
didn't
you.
win the trials, but
Yeah. And Bevan and Maureen
Copel for
and then
Conjure
most
and
of all,
81 foot maxi, and then Marvin Green, and that was the highlight of my racing career, was sailing on Nirvana 81 foot maxi all over the world basically, and doing a lot of winning.
Yeah. So you see, we've had quite an interesting life, and boy, this book is really going to be pretty special. But I want to give another shout out before we tell you about the surprise, and that is to the team that is helping us today and has helped us for many years through, and especially today through this crazy pandemic period where you never know from one day to the next what's going to happen. And special thanks to all of our team. And that's Beth Oliver, Director of Marketing, Bryce Jackson, Chief
Operations.
Chief Executive Manager, Operations Manager, who has quite a team and keeps everything going in a way that is just remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's
Andy, who keeps the cruising boats, and engineer who keeps the cruising boats running.
Wendy Bishop, our sales manager, and Don Birdsall, many of you talked to, and Diana Smith you've talked to. Behind the scenes, there's Mike Roth, our controller, who has been amazing help to us in so many ways. And then there's also the people who really keep the day-to-day going, and that is Cheryl Jones and Jerry McLeod. So I think I've got everybody there. So we're out of time. And
Not quite.
whoa.
I'd like to give a shout out to
No,
Doris.
forget it. No.
Doris
no.
has done so much.
Okay,
She's an Energizer bunny. That's amazing.
Okay, so here's the deal. We have a contest for you. So those of you who've been listening, and if you want to tell your friends also, we want you to go to the Offshore Sailing School YouTube channel. This is the address. I hope it's not backwards. It
No,
looks-
it's not.
Looks
It's backwards when you
here.
put it up there, but it's not
Okay,
too
but
bad.
anyway, that's the address. It's the Offshore Sailing School YouTube channel. You can email me if you can't remember it. I'll send it to you. It's doris@offshoresailing.com. And we're going to look for 5 winners who tell us which of the 69 dockside chats they like the most and why. The why is very important. And it's going to be judged by our team that's with us today,
Yes.
all those people that I mentioned. So don't forget, go to the YouTube channel, tell us which of those you liked, and the prize is going to be a very specially autographed copy, first run of For the Love of Sailing, autographed by Steve and me and by the author who's putting it all together, Herb McCormick. So let's do this, have fun, and thank you all for listening,
Go sailing.
and go sailing. Bye-bye.